Hello, everybody. I'm doing my podcast on the Wall Street bombing of 1920, and I picked this case study because it's so similar to more recent bombings, but interestingly enough, there isn't even a plaque commemorating the event. The only reminders are pockmarks in the facade that are left from the shrapnel. Stage 1 of the disaster states that you are the police chief of a large metropolitan East Coast city. At noon on September 16, 1920, police officers noticed a wagon parked across the street from the J.P. Morgan Bank headquarters. A note threatening death unless all political prisoners are freed is found in a nearby mailbox. This note is signed by the American anarchist fighters. Officers need to be instructed to seal off the area around the wagon. They also need to evacuate buildings that could be damaged by a bomb blast from the wagon. A bomb disposal unit should be deployed to see if there is in fact a bomb in the suspicious wagon. The bomb should be defused or the wagon moved if this would be possible without detonating. Police officers need to be vigilant for any type of suspicious activity or objects. If this is a criminal or terrorist action, there may be more than just one threat of criminal events. The public must be encouraged to be alert and to report any suspicious activity or object immediately to the police. They must also be told to avoid the financial district until further notice. Stage 2 of the disaster states that after a short period of time the wagon detonates. 38 people die, 400 are injured, and over $2 million worth of property is destroyed. Medical personnel must be expedited to the scene to assist the injured. Additionally, police investigators need to seal off the scene and begin collecting evidence. Structural engineers should be requested to assess the damage and structural integrity of the affected buildings. Unsafe buildings must be at least temporarily condemned. The public needs to be reassured that everything possible is being done to ensure public safety. The city manager needs to be kept abreast of the events that have occurred, and police officers must remain vigilant for new suspicious activity. Stage 3 of the disaster states that the public is beginning to panic due to a rumor that another bomb is located nearby. More patrols should be put out to assure the public that police are in control of the situation. If needed, reserves could be mobilized to alleviate possible manpower limitations. As there is no additional threat, the public should be reassured that the rumor is false and that the police department is on alert for any suspicious person or activity. The key issues noted in this case study are: even though the possibility is remote, a plan should be in place to effectively evacuate the area in case there should be another explosive device. The biggest failure in this case study was that the area was not evacuated in time. Items of note: no arrests or criminal prosecutions were made following the 1920 Wall Street bombing. While it was suspected that anarchists planted the bomb, the police did not have a viable suspect or proof that a particular organization was responsible for the bombing. My critique is that I do not know how unusual it would have been for a horse-drawn wagon to be stopped on Wall Street in 1920. The only thing suspicious about that was the fact that there was no driver with a horse and wagon. It was during lunch hour that this occurred, and the street was busy with people who probably did not even notice. Additionally, the flyers found in the post office box just before the explosion did not give any hints as to the location of the incident and did not leave enough time to connect the dots to prevent the carnage. As with more recent terrorist acts, by their nature, they are difficult to impossible to predict and prevent. It is also incorrect that no arrests were made. Several arrests were made in connection with the investigation, but they failed to support the indictment. What I learned in this case study, reading up on it, was that the emergency response was very quick. It was actually very surprising how quick it was. It appears that the people who mattered kept a cool head. For one, the president of the New York Stock Exchange, William H. Remick, suspended trading with them within 1 minute of the explosion to prevent a panic. Outside, rescuers were working feverishly in the meantime to transport the wounded to the hospital. They included a 17-year-old messenger boy named James Saul, who stole a parked car and used it to transport 30 people to a hospital. Police officers also rushed to the scene to perform first aid. They commandeered all nearby automobiles as emergency transport vehicles. Something else that I found interesting was that the bombing stimulated efforts by police and federal investigators to track activities and movements of foreign radicals. Sounds almost like nowadays. And also I found it very interesting that the predecessor to the FBI, the Bureau of Investigation, or BOI, was already in existence at that time. As I stated earlier, it is very difficult to impossible to predict or prevent acts of terrorism. That is the reason why we call it terrorism, because it strikes unexpectedly with often extreme violence, striking terror in people's hearts. I included a link from Wikipedia that gives a lot of good information on the incident, and also one to the article After 1920 Blast, the opposite of Never Forget, no memorials on Wall Street for attack that killed more than 30. And this is in the New York Times. It talks about just that, the lack of a plaque, marker, or memorial, completely absent at the site. It also reports that investigations were ongoing until the late 1930s, so it seems like they put a lot of time into trying to find the perpetrators. The article on Slate, which I also included a link to, has some good pictures of the incident, and also made mention that in their haste to reopen the exchange, evidence was literally swept away. The article Anger and Anarchy on Wall Street, which is on the Smithsonian, on Smithsonian.com, gives a lot of interesting information on the historical background of the bombing, and that link is also included. In closing, I can say that while we won't be able to prevent acts of terrorism, we can be prepared for a quick response and keep cool heads like the responders to the 1920 Wall Street bombing.